Welcome to Table Talk with ABFI. I'm Matt Knight. Today we're joined by Sarah Baptiste, President and CEO of ArrKann Trailer and RV. Today, you'll hear her thoughts on trailers and the EV of the future, how to build great humans both at work and at home, and how to set up boundaries between the tables of your life, be it your kitchen table or your boardroom table. So welcome to Table Talk with ABFI. We're joined today by Sarah Baptiste with ArrKann Trailer and RV. Mm-hmm. You want to maybe just start by telling us a little bit about your company? So even just what does ArrKann do aside from trailers and RVs, of course?
Yeah, so we sell them. So we sell RVs, so travel trailers, fifth wheels, tent trailers, motorhomes, pretty much all RVs. And then we sell the accessories and service and parts that go along with that. So that's the boring version of what we do. The more interesting version is, so we help people enjoy the camping RV lifestyle and just connect with themselves, each other, and nature. And we are really excited to do that because we feel that now more than ever, people really need time and space that allows them to force those connections because it's a little tougher. Everyone's kind of down on their screen sometimes. So we can help people do that. And we've been doing it for years and we'll do it for years to come.
Nice. So just kind of helping people to enjoy nature and connect with themselves and each other.
Whatever that is. For some people, it's going by yourself into a park somewhere. And for other people, it's getting together with some group camping, some other families. And sometimes it's just with your own family. So, it looks different for everybody. And that's kind of the fun part is learning about our customers, what kind of camping they want to do and how we can best help them do that because we do different things for different people. And we have the expertise to do that. That's the elevator pitch there for you.
Nice. Okay. So backing up into the kind of the very beginnings of ArrKann, or probably even before it was ArrKann, can you go into kind of the history and background of the family business? And
So the beginnings was before me. So my grandfather, Rube Friedenberg, he was a very entrepreneurial man. So from what I understand his first business was a gas station. Okay. So he started with that. And then him and his wife and my dad and my uncle, they moved to the city. I don't know if the dad and uncle came before or after the move to the city, but they came to the city. And for years and years, he ran Allendale Hardware in the Pleasant View neighborhood in Edmonton. Okay. So he ran that for a long time. My dad and my uncle both worked in it. And eventually they started renting tent trailers out of the back of the hardware. And that was the gateway into RVing. And he started to see some larger like hardware stores. That big box was sort of starting to come in, and they decided that he would open the dealership with my dad and they would start selling RVs. And my uncle joined a few years later and then off they went. So they started selling and they moved into actually some manufacturing too. So they manufactured tent trailers, leisure craft tent trailers for a while and sold hot tubs for a while and affordable portaboats for a while. And they were in the path of the tornado, I think in 1987. And it totally took out all of the buildings and manufacturers and everything. So at that point, they decided that they were going to rebuild the dealership, but they were going to focus on the retail sales and move away from the manufacturing. Okay. And so that took us into the 90s. My grandfather retired and turned the business over to my dad and my uncle. They acquired we don't have it anymore, but another location on St. Albert Trail. So we called it the satellite location. They did sales and parts out of there, I think in 2005-ish. Okay. My uncle retired shortly thereafter around the 2008. And then it was my dad. So family business. I worked in it from when I was quite little, cleaned many, many trailers in my day in the summers, worked RV shows. And then I worked there when I went to university. Okay. And you want me to keep going?
Yeah, well, that kind of leads right into the next question, which is kind of tell us a little bit about your professional journey.
So like I said, I worked in the dealership growing up and I went to university with no plans of ever being involved in the family business. I wasn't going to do that. That wasn't for me, which I don't think is an uncommon story.
Yeah.
And I have to say my father's always been really supportive of whatever I wanted to do. So his mantra, or what he always said to us, all of us, there's 3 of us growing up, is if it's to be, it's up to me. So you can be anything you want in the world, except for a banker. He doesn't like bankers. Okay. They called us loans in the 80s and caused much stress, and he's never forgotten. So you can be anything in the world except for a banker. So whatever you want to do, go for it. We'll support you. So I went to university. I did the co-op program at the U of A. So I'm a U of A alum. I got my Bachelor of Commerce, and I worked for a Canada Revenue Agency for 4 months, which was awful. I was in the business call center. So if you called from a business, I might answer the phone.
Okay.
And, what I really learned was that type of government environment, it just wasn't for me. It was really rigid, really focused on you do what you're supposed to do. And I just needed a lot more flexibility in my world. And I'm a little bit of a go-getter sometimes. So, if I saw something that needed fixing or I thought I would help, I would want to. And it just wasn't really encouraged in that type of environment. And so then I worked for GE Commercial Finance in their equipment finance division for 8 months, which was really cool because the heavy equipment financing is parallel to some of the floor plan financing we do at ArrKann. So I had kind of seen that, so I could kind of see the other side for heavy equipment and what that piece looks at, like with the bank. So I did that for 8 months, and I liked it, and I liked the office, and I liked the people. But when I started looking around, I'm like, man, for me to move up this corporate ladder, it's going to take a long time, and probably isn't going to be in Edmonton. So I might need to think about moving, I was okay with that at the time. But because it was such a large company, for me to have any sort of influence or say, for everyone even to be interested in hearing my ideas, that was going to take a really, really long time. And you get really specialized. I was a co-op student, so I was the bottom. I was doing everything, but I could see there was the account managers, there was the doc person. Like everyone had their really specific roles in the office, and you really didn't get to see how you impacted the larger picture of the company on a national, provincial, national, or even international level. So, I looked around. What did I love? I loved flexibility. I loved having a voice in the direction. I loved someone, being interested in my ideas. I'm like, okay, I have this opportunity right now. It's the family business. So I went to my dad and said, I think I'm interested. But at that point, we had our 1904 80th Ave location in Edmonton and our Sunarbor Trail location. I said, I think I'm interested, but I really want to see if I can grow this thing. So, this is obviously your investment. It's your retirement. It's your life. Are you interested in that? And he said, yeah, I'm interested in helping you in that journey. I'm not interested in doing a ton of the work for it. So if you want to take it, I'll support you with my money, essentially, and his investment and his blood, sweat, and tears up to there. And I joined. I started in a parts manager role. Okay. Did that for a few years. Moved into an office manager role. I got my CMA, Certified Management Accounting designation, which is now a CPA. Yep. And started my family in 2013. It's actually my son's 10th birthday today, so 10 years ago.
Nice. Congrats. And happy birthday to him.
Happy birthday to him, to Connor, yeah. And then when I came back from my 5-month maternity leave, my dad retired, and I took over as the general manager, which we converted to a CEO role. And then the rest, they say, is history. Off we went.
So a lot of changes kind of 10 years ago around that event.
That event, yeah. So we had added, in 2012, we added our first Calgary location. So this was our first new location outside. So it was kind of like, it took me, I came in 2005, it was 7 years to even make that first step. But it was really sort of small. It was an opportunity. And we thought, okay, this can kind of help us get our feet wet, see what it's like without too much risk, because we weren't investing in any property at that time. So we were leasing from someone else. It was a small dealership. It was only a few $100,000 for us to take that over. So we did that, learned a ton. And then we acquired some land because that piece wasn't quite big enough outside of Calgary. And we built our Calgary store where it sits today on 8.4 acres. It's on Highway 1, just outside of Chestermere. And we opened that in 2017. So I learned about land development and building buildings, and there are some lessons there.
Definitely a lot
for
of
sure. It's a little bit different than what I had been exposed to up till then. Yeah. And at the same time, we'd also built another shop in Edmonton. And we're a glutton for punishment. So we opened our Calgary location in 2017, and we also acquired our next dealership in Carstairs at that same year.
Okay.
So we took that over in September.
Yeah, so lots of
change. Yeah. So it was pretty busy. It took us a few years to work through that and kind of figure that out. And in 2021, so we took over a dealership in Medicine Hat.
Okay.
So that wasn't that long ago. And in that same year, we ended up selling off our Sunbird Trail property and where our shop was, and moving our head office out to Atchison to our second full service location. So we didn't have service out of our other location. So we moved that up, and now we're dealing with that, another jump of growth. And I always joke, like, why can't I just do one thing at a time? Why do we have to stack things on? But what can I say? I like a challenge.
Yeah. So you probably don't think back on what would things look like if I was still in the GE corporate non-family business world.
You know what? Sometimes I do. And, honestly, it's hard to say. Like, I think that I'd find fulfillment in whatever I did. But I don't think I would feel the same sense of accomplishment. For me personally, like I said, I started my family 10 years ago. And at that point, my husband and we would go camping sometimes because we kind of felt like this is what we should do. And I did it because I felt an obligation to, not because I wanted to. But then after I had my son, I think he was 6 months old, we took our first trip to Pigeon Lake. And, just seeing him out sitting in the grass, playing with his little tiny bucket and shovel and shoveling sand in and playing with the plants. And it just hit me. I'm like, wow, this is why we do it. Like, what a gift. Yeah. And if I wasn't in this environment, I wouldn't camp. I would miss out on this whole piece of it. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't, but probably not.
Yeah,
and
interesting.
And I would just miss all that. So I'm really thankful that this is the path that it went on, because it's really enriched my family life too in a way that I had no idea it would do.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So you mentioned your father was really kind of supportive of you doing whatever you wanted to do. Aside from kind of that guidance and support and kind of ability to do whatever you wanted, what did he do to kind of prepare you for the family business?
So my father has been a real mentor to me. So I started full-time in 2005. So I worked with him. My father is a really great leader. So he does an awesome job really listening to the people that he works with. If you go with some of our old stuff, there's countless stories. Listening and understanding, and this sense of empathy. I think sometimes in businesses you get, especially in a competitive labor environment, you get protective of your employees, that if someone wants to leave, you get offended. You find it like, why would you leave? Yeah. But he was never like that. He always modeled, because it was never a conversation, like officially, it was just modeled. Like, if someone's not happy who works here, they need to go explore that. And, if we can do right by them and we can give them that freedom, maybe they'll come back, and lots of employees have, and maybe they won't, but that's okay. And, having people who work, and I'm going to say with you, because that's always been his perspective. People never worked for him. People always worked with him. And I think that's a philosophy that I've adopted as well. So having people work with you, you don't want people who are miserable coming into work every day. Yeah. And because he works with them, that they influence him. Like, there's that give and take and vice versa. So, he really showed me that sense of empathy and taking the time to understand and listen and, be a part of people's day-to-days, and, walk around and get to know the people who you're working with. And I think that there is some people who own businesses who don't have that philosophy. So that's really held by my heart. And it's something that we've worked to maintain. We call it kind of the family feel. So, I'm part of the Kenn's family, but we talk about the ArrKann family. So, ArrKannians, you're part of something bigger than just yourself. So that's his philosophy, and we've really carried that forward kind of as we went on. But he worked with me in 2005, so I got to see his leadership style. When I became office manager, our doors were right next, so he slowly transferred responsibility for me. Was always that mentor and that coach, right? Like, wants to have conversations, and I recently turned 40, and you reflect back, and who knows what my 50s and 60s will bring. But, you know, in my 20s, I think I felt like I knew it all and I had a lot to offer, and no one appreciated what I was bringing to the table. But then as I became smarter, I really learned, like, I don't know anything. like I'm pretty stupid, and I can't believe he let me do some of those things, but he let me make mistakes. Not catastrophic ones, but he let me make mistakes, and I learned from them. And I really appreciate that he gave me that freedom to do that. You know, he didn't micromanage, and he didn't come in and question everything that I did. So he allowed me some space to learn in the way that worked for me, and gave me the guidance. Sometimes when I asked, and sometimes I didn't, gave me the guidance. And if it wasn't a dangerous thing, you know, he wouldn't make me take that advice, and then I would live with the consequences of my choices. Yeah. And and I learned a lot, and I still do, because now I've brought that philosophy carried on with our shorter management team.
Nice. And anything kind of from your father's lessons there, or, you know, that you're doing a little bit differently in how you're raising your son, and thoughts on preparing him for the business in the future, or anything like that?
You know what? I think I'm not doing a ton different, because, you know, he didn't raise me to prepare me to take over the business. He raised me to be a good person and a good member of society. Okay. So, and I think that that's kind of what I'm doing too. You know, my goal, I think, as a parent is I want to, you know, release my little fledgling into the world, and I want him to fly, and I want him to go out and contribute. So, you know, I want him to be a good person and deal with everyone with integrity and honesty, and give back when he can. And so that's, you know, that's a similar type philosophy that my parents had too. You know, there was never that pressure. And I don't think that there should be, because, you know, life's too short to go to work to doing something that you feel like you have to do every day. Yeah. So there was never an expectation. So for us, that was really freeing, really. So yeah, there's no expectation. And we say the same thing, you know, you can be whatever you want to be, and foster along. I think my son played team sports, and I never did. I'm not sure if that was a deliberate choice on my parents' part, or more just a me thing. So that's that was good. But honestly, no, not a ton different. So I guess I'll say I think my parents did a pretty damn good job, because I'm pretty great. So.
So is he starting to wash trailers yet?
No, not yet. We do have him come in some of our videos, though. Okay, we use him in our marketing. We don't pay him for it, so we exploit his cuteness. Yeah.
So, you know, kind of maybe in those times you were working with your father, and, you know, and other interactions with the family, how are you guys handling things like succession planning and balancing the difference between kind of the family and business dynamic?
So one of the things that we did when my dad started to exit the business, well, first of all, we worked with a consultant. So they're called Predictable Futures, to help us. And one of the things they advised us to do was set up an advisory board. Okay. Yeah. So we have an advisory board. We have myself, my dad, and 2 external members. And my dad isn't the chair. One of the external members is. So what that has really helped is we meet 3 times a year. An advisory board, similar to a regular board of a government, is that, you know, the job of the board is to help provide strategic direction for the business. And what has really helped too is there is a level of accountability for me, because I'm not the be all and end all. I need to report into a group of people and ensure that, you know, I'm a good steward. And for my father, it allows him space to review the financials, ask his questions, you know, the hard questions, like, why are you doing this? Where are you going? What do you think is going to happen? And then we can have some debates about where it goes next. So this has really enabled him to still have a voice in his business. And it's given me and my team a higher level of accountability, and we produce a better product. Yep. It's been, I think, essential for our succession plan to have that space. There was a transition, especially when he very first, like that first year of retirement. I think for him, it just felt like a holiday, like, and then as he started to feel less a holiday and more day to day, and then he started to get a little bit bored. Okay. So then he would come in and, you know, he'd want to have a conversation about what's going on, and I would be too busy. So he always jokes that I have one feeling. So one day he's like, Sarah, I only have one feeling, but you've heard it. And, so we've had those tough conversations. So, he felt dismissed and that I didn't have the time for him. And that was a real problem. And I was frustrated because I didn't feel like I could just drop everything to make time for him because I was running the company, right? Yeah. I was busy. So, working through some of those conversations, we didn't let it fester. Okay. We did it up. And one of the things that I requested is when we often have family dinners on the weekends or we get together. And one of the things I requested early on is I don't want to talk about the business. I want to talk about what's going on in my life and your life and everything else that goes around, but I don't want to talk about the business here because I need to get away. I need to set more boundaries. And I think that's maybe something I've done different, back to the raising questions, than he has, is he, especially when I was young, he worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Like he really gave the business his all. And I didn't see him a lot. And I wouldn't say I didn't think I missed him, but you didn't miss what wasn't there. And he was there. We still did our family vacations, but on that, he often wasn't home for dinner, and that's just how it was, right? Yeah. So I have worked really hard to maintain work-life balance. I try to be home in the evenings. I try not to work insane overtime. I always take my days off and we take holidays. So maintaining that boundary, I think, has been really, really important for me. So for when we go to family dinners, I'm like, no, this is my family time. This isn't my work time. So, we can have a conversation at work time, not a problem. And that was that took a little bit of time, but we got there, and it's not really an issue anymore at all.
Yeah, it's a hard boundary to set, but kind of once it's there, it's sacred.
Yeah. So, and I think probably the thing that we need to do that we haven't done as good a job with is just setting up family meetings. So a regular time to meet, to talk about, as a family, with my brothers and sisters, like what does the business look like? What's the plan? What are the impacts? What's my parents' plan for when they pass? So what's in their will, and some of that stuff about what that looks like. So, we need to make a little more time for that. I think we've done okay, but we'll need to do a better job moving forward with that piece of it as we start to go on. And it's a little bigger than it was before. So, as the business gets bigger, people who weren't interested in it before might be more interested now. So, establish what's the transition look like for the family that's not involved. So we're starting to have those conversations now.
Okay. So kind of outside of that ownership and family role, they're becoming a little bit more interested. Yeah. And are any of your other siblings involved in the business today?
Yeah, my brother is. So my brother is one of our general sales managers at actually our South store here. And he does an amazing job. And I say that, so he's 8 years younger than me. So he's quite a few years younger than me. So he's my succession plan for when I'm ready to go. And then he can do this for a while and see how he feels about it. So we're starting to, he knows that now. We're starting to have that conversations of what that looks like. And it's still some time. I think I've got another good decade in me at least, maybe more than that. But, you always have to have, and that's what our advisory board says, if something happens, if you get hit by a bus, Sarah, tomorrow, like, what do we do?
What is that plan?
Yeah, what is that plan? So.
So what do you do in the organization today at all the different branches and corporate to kind of build that culture of, familyness and collaboration and entrepreneurship and innovation?
Well, that's a real big question, isn't it? So one of the things well, first of all, we try and model that with my team. So I try and model it for the recognition piece. I think that that's probably really important from when I started, and maybe just a little bit of my personality, that little bit of type A, pessimistic type. I really see what people aren't doing well. And so I've tried to transition to recognizing what's going well. So that recognition piece and giving praise where praise is due in the moment. I joke that I'm going to write a book, but I'm not sure it really is a joke, that raising good kids and having a good culture at your company is the same skills. So, but one of those pieces is like if you see someone doing something that you want to see, want them to keep doing, you should tell them. And it's a simple concept, but most people don't do it. They're just like, okay, good, you're doing your job. But for a lot of people, they don't know that that's what you want. They assume they're doing it, but in the absence of a story, people will make one up. So we're trying to fill that narrative. So, okay, great. You're doing a great job. And so I've worked really hard at doing a better job with that recognition piece. And it's taken a lot of years. I think I'm finally starting to make some progress on it. So my team is doing that down, and we encourage our management to do that. So we have a program, we call it the props program. So people recognizing other people.
Nice.
So they fill that card and they give it to their, that person's manager, and then they can either share it with an individual or in a meeting, so they can give props to that. So they know, and it might be their manager, but it's somebody else where they just saw it and they're like, yeah, you did a great job. I want to give some props. So that's probably our recognition program. From a cultural piece, COVID kind of derailed things a little bit. We're kind of just starting to get things back on track. But in most of the stores, we would do mixers.
Okay.
Every 3 to 4 months. So over the years, we've done all sorts of things. So we've done everything from, we rented sumo suits and had like sumo competitions. We've done some like fundraisers for cancer. So cut people's hair. So he still works for us. We joke that he's Thor because he has long blonde hair, but we had a cut it or keep it campaign. So we each raised money, cut it or keep it. And if the keep it side raised more, he would keep it. And if the cut it side, so the cut it raised more. So we had a big event. So, we've done Iron Stomach. We've done like penny carnival things. We've done quite a few, some charitable pieces too. So like where we did a cleanup for the Bissell Center. They have a Moonlight Bay camp out of Wabamun. So we did spring cleanup. We'll probably do that again this year. We'll do for Ronald McDonald House. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it again this year, where we go and we cook a meal for the house. So we try to have that community piece. And I guess that's the other family piece too, is having that community. So we have our Keeping Kids Camping program. Started out, people used to ask Ken, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I just keep the kids camping. So he said it kind of cheap, but it was kind of true. So now we have our Keeping Kids Camping program. So it's about using our resources to keep kids active and healthy in our communities. So we take a portion of every trailer and we set it aside and we reinvest that back into the community. So a lot of jerseys, a lot of kids sports team. The Ardrossan Spray Park, we have some naming rights there. We were partnered with Rainbow Valley. They have their program for new Canadians to get involved in the Canadian lifestyle, so camping or skiing. So we contribute to that piece of it. Lots of sports teams. Mostly that's what it is. It's kids in schools. There's a Spruce Avenue school in the inner city here. We usually donate some money to them so they can buy jerseys for their kids, because they don't have any extra money for that stuff. So we try and help them out with that. And then we also have our community events trailers. So these are any nonprofit can borrow them for anything. So lots of cancer runs. When IKEA used to sell Christmas trees, they would borrow in the winter. We do Alberta Snow Days. There's used a lot.
There's lots of community initiatives.
There's lots of community initiatives. Yeah, they'll end up at often at Heritage Days, or radio stations will borrow them for what they want. So anything nonprofit, you can apply to use this. We have one in Edmonton and for Calgary. Lots of cancer runs or Ride for Dads.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So, we try to model being good citizens. And I think that carries forward down in that family piece. I talked about how I want to raise my son that way. I'd love for our staff to be that way too, right? So we try to walk what we talk is a big part of that piece. For innovation, we really focus hard on using our meeting rhythms to hear people's ideas. So hearing where people are coming from and actioning some of it and being open. So it's like a dirty phrase is, well, because that's how we've always done it. If that's our only answer, then we need to go back to the drawing table, because that's not good enough.
Yeah, it's not a good answer.
No, not a good answer at all. So that's part of it though. Like that core belief that because we've always done it, if that's the best reason, we need to rethink it. And when people start to understand that, people who've been there a long time now they're going to be, okay, well, maybe I have an idea of how to do this better. Right. So that's something else that I think helps foster that innovation and bring people's ideas forward.
Nice. So changing gears a little bit, do you kind of have any funny stories or embarrassing memories growing up in a family business?
I don't know. Probably. I'm sure I do. So the Edmonton RV show has been really around for a long time. So they were doing often did themes, and they were doing a newsprint theme. So Dad said, hey, do you want to come work the RV show for the weekend? I'll give you $20. I'm like, $20? I'm like, yeah. And now I'm like, I was ripped off. I was there for 12 hours a day for 4 days. But I was dressed up as a little newsie. They had with my little hat, handing it out, the ArrKann Times. Nice. They come here, and we're like, okay, well, that was that was fun. I'm sure there's more, but that one really resonates with me. I said, now I'm like, you ripped me off. He's like, you didn't negotiate, so like, I paid you. I had this vacuum before we started. I had to vacuum. It had this old Kirby vacuum. Like, so like either my dad or my grandpa used to, it must have been my dad, like early in his career. So this thing weighed like probably 10 pounds, and I mean, little 10-year-old Sarah, I'm not that big now, I was even smaller then, pushing it up and down. You're right. Yeah. It is time for Connor to start working in the family business now. Now that I think back on it,
he could be I think the RV show. Probably coming up.
He for the newsie. Yeah, maybe we'll put him in the mascot. My cousin actually is involved. So I said my uncle left the business, but my cousin Neil, his son works for us too. So he helped us start the Calgary store. So when we bought it, we realized we needed someone from our current organization to help bring some of those values. And I didn't even talk about our values. So we do managing by values. So we really believe that we need to manage within lines. So that's the core of our culture. So they're stay on the right path. Mm-hmm. Be stick with yourself in a relationship, get dirty, get in, get it done. And there's always room around the campfire. So we wanted to make them themes around inclusiveness, teamwork, and integrity.
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah. Good. So we redid them a couple of years ago to make them more authentic to who we are. And so now we have a lot of fun with them. Yeah. So yeah, we love that. So my cousin Neil's involved, and he has 3 sons. And so now his sons are, we have the Ranger Rick. So his dad is named Rick. So we named our mascot that we use at the shows. It's homage to my uncle. So Ranger Rick was Neil's kids was doing it. His oldest son was doing that at the show. So
awesome.
Yeah. So we're starting to see that second generation. And
kind of getting more involved and being engaged.
Yeah.
Looking forward, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenges for the family business in kind of the next 5 to 10 years?
From a family perspective, I don't think there's going to be a challenge, specifically for the family piece, but I think the business, there is some significant challenges. So as EVs become more prevalent and being mandated by governments, are starting to navigate how does that affect our industry. So, at first I thought it would be towing issues, but, it's not, it's range issues. So like the Ford Lightning truck, it can tow as much or more than the gas version of that same vehicle, but it's the ranges that will be the challenge and the lack of charging infrastructure. So the RVIA, so the RV Industry Association in the U.S. is pushing the U.S. government when they do set up charging infrastructure to do one for a car, but one for the trailer. So when you pull up, you can charge both. The manufacturers are starting to play around with the idea. They actually have had them in Europe for about 3 years. The powertrain on the trailer is self-powered as well as the car. So it increases your range because the trailer is propelling itself and the car is just keeping it on the road. Yeah. So I think navigating that and seeing what that looks like is going to be really interesting in the next 5 to 10 years. There's a little fear of the unknown around that piece of it. And in this current environment, there's a lot of conflicting pressures, you hear about the inflation piece of it and the upwards on wage pressure, but our margins are coming down. So navigating how do we utilize technology to help fill the labor gaps that we just can't afford to anymore. So learning to become more efficient with how we run our business is going to be really key to our success. Something that we're working on now, but it's challenge. It's a challenging shift because when things aren't going well or people feel too busy, the default's always like, well, we need to hire more people, which is really difficult to do right now, right? So managing that labor inventory, especially as there's a squeeze and those baby boomers are retiring, and what does that look like? I think from what we have going for us is we do provide an amazing experience that a lot of people see value in and get into. The COVID was a huge upswing for us and we were super lucky about that, but it introduced a lot of people to the RV lifestyle that never would have seen it before. So how do we keep those new RVers in our infrastructure and help them keep enjoying the RV camping lifestyle and those pieces moving forward. So, as the next generations come up, I think they see value, and I know they see value in what we're doing. So it's shifting enough that we can provide value with them and managing those ever increasing customer expectations and decreasing skill of the average person to mechanically fix their trailers. So how can we help them meet that need? So
nice. Okay. From kind of an education and professional development perspective, is there kind of a book or a seminar or a course that kind of sticks out in your mind as being the most impactful to either your development or how you manage your business today?
Well, I'm going to work from most recent back. So most recently, myself and my whole team, and then we actually worked with a coach on a book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. That has been just mind-blowing for me. What I really loved about that book was it took strategic planning and put a process to it. What I've always kind of struggled with is, okay, we need to do strategic planning. So we go off site, we do these big strategic planning things, and we have our binder, and then we put it on the shelf and good. Plan is done. But there's no accountability in that. How do you actually ensure you execute it? Sometimes it happens by accident, but it's a little bit by accident because you don't actually do anything different. So that's what I love about Scaling Up is it talks about, okay, you have your front page. What's your big rocks? What's your 3 or 5 year key thrust? What are your big plans? Now, what actions are you going to do on an annual basis to a quarterly basis to a weekly basis that are going to move you in that direction?
Towards those rocks. Yeah.
Towards those rocks. So, for me, that was the very first time that I was like, okay, I have a process now that I can train people on how to do it, how to execute, and hold me and myself and my team accountable to it. So that I was saying is probably the most recent piece that has really changed my perspective and helped propel us forward. Nice. I did a leadership development course. I did it with a company that's in the RV space. And my brother, which I think was actually better, did it with leadership development with the executive education at the U of A, which I don't think they have that anymore. But
some of those programs are still around.
I was looking, yeah. So I think I might put some more people through that. So I think that was great. But I think the hardest thing as a leader is to develop those soft skills. So I think leadership development is super important, and self-awareness. You can only get better at what you do if you're aware of what you're not doing well. So, and you take responsibility for that. So I think that's key. So I really look for, when we're looking for talent, people who we say, where do you see your biggest opportunity? It's not things like, I tried too hard. It's, it's real concrete examples of, for me, I wasn't great at recognizing people. So we put in a program that gave us a process on how we could do that, right? So it's kind of not the best example, but that's the one off the top of my head. But just being self-aware and recognizing that you're not going to be perfect, acknowledging where you're not. I think being human and acknowledging that, and not only is a great example for your team, but it makes them more likely to come to you with their problems or with news that they know you won't like. Yeah. We sometimes joke, we have a kind of like words we come and someone says like, this is the safe nest, right? I'm like, okay, I'm not going to like what you're going to tell me, but that's okay. But it kind of like allows you to mentally prepare if someone's going to drop a bomb on you. But that self-awareness, you can only improve if you know where your opportunities are. So being aware of that. And I think that leadership development programs help you explore what that is, and then help you give you some paths and some skills to improving those. And then you can follow up and see with that. So that was great. And then, way back, I think university degrees, I got a Bachelor of Commerce and I'm in business, so that works. But, we have my VP of sales. He has a Bachelor of Education. And he's actually, I don't know if he would be a great teacher. He's really good at his job. But what university, I think, really teaches you is linear thinking. It's how to think through a problem and then communicate it in a linear fashion.
Yep.
And that's not something that comes intuitively to the average person. So I see a ton of value in getting diplomas and degrees just from that piece of it. I don't really care what it is, really, because no matter what path you go on, it's going to teach you how to think in a linear fashion.
Yeah, and it shows that you have that ability to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And, that drive, that sense of accomplishment. That's one of our other interview questions is something you're proud of. And I love it when they've completed post-secondary, because you don't have to do that. No one makes you do that. So I think that shows their ability to finish something that they chose to do.
Nice. So any ideas, if you weren't doing this, what do you think you would be doing?
Well, how about instead I'll talk about my next job.
Okay.
So like I said, I have a succession plan, 10 to 15 years. There's the jobs that I'm actually going to do, and then the job that I would do if money didn't matter. So, we'll start with, if money didn't matter, I would run a used bookshop and a coffee shop, because I love old books. I love the way they smell. I love reading them. I love talking to other readers, and I like drinking coffee. So I think I would really enjoy that. I think I get a lot of satisfaction with that. The other thing I get a lot of satisfaction is helping other people. So, I don't think I could have done it if I didn't do this job first, but, consulting and mentoring. So working with other, I would think particularly for me, women in business and women in male-dominated businesses. I love when I can have conversations and help them grow and be a part of their leadership development journey. So I think moving into some consulting and some mentoring programs is probably where I'm gonna move to next.
Nice. Okay. This is a bit of a weird question, but if you weren't in kind of your family business, is there another business family or another business that you would like to be transplanted into?
Ooh, I don't know. I've always been fascinated with manufacturing. Okay. Because that's a different side of it. So I think that, and maybe it was because I recently saw the CEO of PCL speak, but PCL I think is a really interesting company, and I would love to learn a little bit more about that business and be a part of it. So I find that to be an interesting
the construction
world. Yeah, I guess maybe at the core I like to build things, which is not something I would have recognized back in the day, but I think that's the manufacturing and that construction piece would probably be where I would look.
Nice.
Next.
Okay. So how should people get a hold of you? If they want to learn more about you, if they want to learn more about buying a trailer, if they need to get their trailer serviced, if they want to learn more about the joy of camping, how do they reach out? How do they connect?
Yeah, so you can connect in different ways. Obviously, our website, www.ArrKann, ArrKann.com is a great way to get all sorts of resources and book appointments and do that. Probably emailing me is the easiest way as well. So my email is s.baptiste, so s.baptiste at ArrKann, ArrKannRV.com. And send me a note and I will happily chat and have a conversation depending on whatever that may be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to learn more about ArrKann and learn a little bit about your journey and your family's journey.
Thank you.
Thank you to both Sarah Baptiste from ArrKann Trailer and for you for tuning in today. If you want to learn more about ABFI or get a hold of us, visit us on the web at www.abfi.ca or send me an email at matt.knight, KNIGHT, @ualberta.ca.